When Selena Hayes walked into that ultrasound room, she expected one problem. She got three, and then armed men kicked down the door. Within an hour, she was face to face with Damian Wolf, the most dangerous man on the East Coast, learning that the triplets growing inside her weren't just babies. They were heirs to a criminal empire worth killing for. Now she's trapped in his world, where every smile hides a knife and love might be the deadliest weapon of all. If you want to see how far this story goes, hit like and drop your city in the comments below. Let's begin. The clinic smelled like disinfectant and broken promises. Selena Hayes sat in the waiting room with her hands folded tight in her lap, trying not to think about the credit card she'd maxed out just to be here. 27 years old, working double shifts at a diner that barely covered rent, and now this. One mistake. One reckless night 3 months ago with a man whose last name she didn't even know. She'd told herself it was nothing, a one-time thing. She'd been so careful her whole life, and the one time she let go, the one time she let herself feel something. This happened. The nurse called her name. Selena stood, legs shaky, and followed her down a narrow hallway into a dim room with an ultrasound machine that looked older than she was. The technician was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and tired hands. "Just lie back," she said. "This'll be quick." Selena stared at the ceiling tiles while the woman squeezed cold gel onto her stomach. The wand pressed down, and the machine beeped to life. Static filled the screen. "Okay, let's see what we have here." Selena didn't want to look. She kept her eyes on the ceiling, counting the stains in the tiles, trying to breathe. Then the technician went quiet. Too quiet. "Is something wrong?" Selena's voice cracked. The woman leaned closer to the screen, her brow furrowed. She adjusted the wand, moved it slightly to the left, then froze. "I need to get the doctor." "Wait, what? Why?" But she was already gone. Selena sat up, heart hammering. She looked at the screen. She didn't know what she was seeing, just shadows and shapes and something that looked like it was moving. Three somethings. The door opened. A doctor stepped in, younger than Selena expected, with a stethoscope around his neck and a look on his face that she couldn't read. "Ms. Hayes," he said carefully, "I'm Dr. Patel. I need you to stay calm." "What's wrong with the baby?" "Nothing's wrong." He sat down on the stool beside her, eyes on the screen. "But there isn't one baby. There are three." The room tilted. "Three. Triplets. All viable. Healthy, from what I can see so far." Selena couldn't breathe. "Three." She could barely afford to feed herself. She had $17 in her checking account and a landlord who'd already threatened eviction twice this year. 3 babies. "That's not possible." "I know it's a shock, but..." The lights went out. For a moment there was only darkness and the sound of Selena's pulse roaring in her ears. Then she heard it, shouting from the hallway. A crash. Someone screaming. Dr. Patel stood. "Stay here." "What's happening?" He didn't answer. He opened the door, stepped out, and Selena heard his voice rise in protest before it cut off suddenly. Too suddenly. She slid off the table, still sticky with ultrasound gel, and pressed herself against the wall. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely control them. The door slammed open. 2 men stepped inside. They wore black suits and moved like soldiers, efficient, cold, scanning the room in seconds. One of them looked at Selena, then at the ultrasound machine, then pulled out a phone. "We found her." "Wait," Selena said. Who are you?" The man ignored her. He listened to whoever was on the other end of that call, then nodded. "Understood." He hung up and looked at Selena like she was a package to be delivered. "You're coming with us." "Like hell I am." She bolted for the door. She made it 2 steps before the second man caught her arm, his grip like iron. She twisted, tried to pull free, but he didn't even flinch. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be," he said quietly. "Let go of me." "Ms. Hayes," the first man's voice was calm, almost polite. "You're carrying Damian Wolf's children. That makes you valuable. You can walk out of here on your own, or we can carry you. Your choice." Damian Wolf. The name hit her like a fist to the stomach. She knew that name. Everyone on the East Coast knew that name, even if they pretended not to. He wasn't just rich. He wasn't just powerful. He was the kind of man you didn't talk about unless you wanted to disappear. And she'd slept with him. Oh, God. I don't know what you're talking about, she whispered. The ultrasound says otherwise. They walked her out through the back exit. The clinic was in chaos, staff huddled in corners, a security guard on the floor holding his bleeding nose, patients crying. No one tried to stop them. No one even looked. Outside, a black SUV waited with the engine running. They put her in the back seat between two more men who didn't speak, didn't look at her, just stared straight ahead like machines. The drive took 40 minutes. Selena watched the city blur past the tinted windows and tried not to throw up. She kept thinking about that night 3 months ago. The bar. The man in the tailored suit who looked at her like she was the only person in the room. The way he bought her a drink. The way he listened when she talked. The way he made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she deserved something good. She hadn't known who he was. He hadn't told her. And when she woke up the next morning in a hotel room that probably cost more than her rent, he was already gone. Now she knew why. The SUV turned off the highway onto a private road that wound through trees so thick they blocked out the sun. At the end of the road was a gate, tall, iron, topped with cameras. It opened without anyone pressing a button. The estate beyond it looked like something out of a movie. Stone walls, manicured gardens, a house that was more mansion than house, sprawling across the property like it owned the land and everything on it. They parked in front of the main entrance. Out, one of the men said. Selena's legs barely worked. She stumbled, getting out of the car, and no one helped her. They just walked her up the steps and through the front door into a foyer with marble floors and a chandelier that probably cost more than she'd make in 10 years. A woman stood waiting, older, elegant, with silver hair pulled into a bun and eyes that could cut glass. "This is her?" she said. "Yes, ma'am." The woman looked Selena up and down like she was inspecting a stain. "She doesn't look like much." "Excuse me?" Selena's voice came out stronger than she felt. "Who the hell are you?" "I'm Victoria Wolf, Damien's mother." She said it like it explained everything. "And you, apparently, are the little mistake he made that just became a very big problem." "I'm not anyone's mistake. You're carrying triplets that belong to my son. In this world, that makes you either an asset or a liability." Victoria stepped closer, and Selena smelled expensive perfume and something sharper underneath, disdain. "Let's hope you're the former." "I want to leave." "That's not going to happen. You can't just kidnap me." Victoria smiled, but there was nothing warm in it. "Sweetheart, no one kidnapped you. You were brought here for your own protection. The moment those babies showed up on that ultrasound, you became a target. Do you have any idea how many people would kill to get their hands on Damien Wolf's heirs? I don't care about any of that. I just want to go home." "You don't have a home anymore, not one that's safe." Footsteps echoed from somewhere deeper in the house. Heavy, deliberate. Everyone in the room straightened slightly, like soldiers sensing their commander. Damien Wolf walked into the foyer, and Selena forgot how to breathe. He looked exactly like she remembered. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to see through everything. But the man she'd met in that bar had been charming, almost gentle. This man was something else entirely. He moved like violence wrapped in expensive clothes, and when he looked at her, she felt it in her chest. "Leave us," he said. Victoria opened her mouth to argue, then thought better of it. She left. The guards followed. Within seconds, the foyer was empty except for Selena and the man who'd just upended her entire life. "Selena," he said quietly. "Don't." She took a step back. "Don't say my name like you know me." "I do know you. You knew me for one night, one, and you didn't even stick around to say goodbye." Something flickered across his face. Regret, maybe, or something close to it. "I had business to handle." "Business?" She laughed, and it came out broken. "Is that what you call this? Because from where I'm standing, it looks a lot like my entire life just got stolen." "You're not a prisoner." "Then let me leave." "I can't." "Why not?" He moved closer, and she hated that her body remembered him, the smell of his cologne, the way his voice dropped when he was serious. "Because the second you stepped into that ultrasound room, people started watching. My enemies, my rivals, people who would burn this city to the ground if they thought they could use you against me." I'm not your problem. You're carrying my children. That makes you exactly my problem. His jaw tightened. 3 of them. Do you have any idea what that means? That I'm screwed? That you're in more danger than you can possibly understand? Selena wanted to scream. She wanted to hit him. Instead, she just stood there, shaking, trying to hold herself together. I didn't ask for this, she whispered. Neither did I. He exhaled slowly. But here we are. So what now? You lock me in a room and pretend I don't exist? No. Now I keep you alive. Mean. The room they gave her was bigger than her apartment. Selena stood in the doorway, staring at the king-sized bed, the walk-in closet, the bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. It was beautiful. It was a cage. A woman in a maid's uniform appeared behind her. Mr. Wolf said you might need clothes. I can have some brought up. I don't want his clothes. You'll need them anyway. The woman's voice was kind but firm. Dinner's at 7. Someone will come get you. She left before Selena could argue. Selena walked to the window. It overlooked the gardens, acres of green stretching toward the tree line. Beautiful. Empty. She pressed her palm against the glass and felt the weight of everything crashing down. 3 babies. She couldn't even take care of herself, and now she was supposed to be responsible for 3 lives? In a world she didn't understand, surrounded by people who looked at her like she was disposable? She sank onto the bed and let herself cry for the first time since the clinic. Quiet, shaking sobs that she swallowed down as fast as they came because she didn't want anyone to hear, didn't want to be weak. But she was weak. She was so damn tired of being weak. A knock at the door startled her. What? She called out, wiping her face. The door opened and a girl stepped inside. Young, maybe 19 or 20, with dark hair and sharp features that looked almost familiar. You must be Selena, she said. I'm Natasha, Damien's sister. Selena stood slowly. Great, another wolf. Natasha laughed. Don't worry, I'm not here to threaten you. I just wanted to see the woman who managed to knock my brother off his game. I didn't do anything. You got pregnant. That's more than anyone else has managed. She walked in uninvited and sat on the edge of the bed like they were old friends. Triplets, right? That's wild. That's one word for it. Look, I know this is a lot, and I know my family can be intense, but Damien's not a bad guy. He just doesn't know how to be anything other than what he is. And what's that? Natasha met her eyes. Dangerous? Selena's stomach turned. That's supposed to make me feel better? No, it's supposed to make you understand what you're dealing with. Natasha stood. Dinner's in an hour. Wear something nice. Mother likes to judge. She left, and Selena was alone again. Dinner was a nightmare. The dining room was the size of Selena's old apartment, with a table that could seat 20 and a chandelier that cast everything in cold, glittering light. Victoria sat at one end, Damien at the other. Natasha was beside Selena, and across from them sat 2 men Selena didn't recognize, both older, both watching her like she was an experiment. This is Marcus, Damien said, gesturing to the man on the left. My head of security, and Julian, my business partner. Selena nodded. Neither man smiled. So, Victoria said, cutting into her steak with surgical precision, tell me, Selena, what exactly do you do? I'm a waitress. How charming. The words dripped with condescension. And before that? Before that, I was also a waitress. Natasha snorted into her wine. Victoria shot her a look that could freeze blood. I see. And your family? Don't have one. No parents? No siblings? My mom died when I was 16. Never knew my dad. No siblings. Selena met Victoria's eyes. I've been on my own for a long time. That explains a lot, Victoria murmured. Mother, Damien said quietly, but there was a warning in it. What? I'm simply trying to understand the woman who will be carrying my grandchildren. You don't need to understand me, Selena said. You just need to let me go. The table went silent. Marcus set down his fork. Julian stopped chewing. Natasha looked between Selena and Damien like she was watching a bomb about to go off. You're not going anywhere, Victoria said flatly. You can't keep me here. We can. We will. For your own good. Bullshit. Victoria's face went cold. Excuse me? You heard me. Selena stood, chair scraping against the floor. This isn't about my safety. This is about control. You people think you can just take whatever you want because you have money and guns and a last name that scares people. But I'm not one of your employees. I'm not one of your soldiers. And I sure as hell am not going to sit here and let you treat me like I'm nothing. Selena, Damien said. She ignored him. I didn't choose this. I didn't choose you. And I don't owe any of you anything. She walked out. No one stopped her. She made it halfway down the hall before Damien caught up. Selena, wait. Leave me alone. He grabbed her arm, gentle but firm. She spun on him, fury and fear mixing into something explosive. Let go of me. Not until you listen. I don't want to listen. I want to leave. You can't. His voice rose, echoing off the walls, then quieter. You can't. Not yet. Why? Because you said so? Because 2 days ago, someone tried to kidnap a woman who looked like you. They shot her 3 times before they realized they had the wrong person. His eyes were hard, unflinching. She's in a coma. The baby she was carrying didn't make it. Selena's breath caught. You're lying. I wish I was. He let go of her arm but didn't step back. The people who did that think you're carrying my heirs. They want you, and they will do anything to get you. Then tell them the truth. Tell them you don't care about me or the babies. That wouldn't change anything. In this world, blood matters more than feelings. Those children make you valuable whether I want them to or not. So I'm stuck here. For now. She wanted to scream. Instead, she just turned away, arms wrapped around herself. How long? I don't know. That's not good enough. It's all I have. She looked back at him, and for a moment, she saw something in his face that wasn't the crime lord or the ruthless bastard everyone feared. She saw the man from the bar, the one who'd listened when she talked about her dreams, who'd made her laugh, who'd looked at her like she mattered, but that man was gone. Or maybe he'd never been real to begin with. I hate you, she whispered. I know. He walked away, and Selena stood alone in the hallway of a house that would never be home, carrying 3 lives she didn't know how to protect. The next morning, Selena woke to shouting. She stumbled out of bed and opened the door to find the hallway in chaos. Guards running, voices sharp with urgency, someone yelling orders. Natasha appeared, face pale. Stay in your room. What's happening? Just stay inside, lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except Damien or me. Natasha. But she was already gone. Selena slammed the door and locked it, heart racing. She pressed her ear against the wood and listened. Footsteps. Shouting. Then, distantly, something that sounded like gunfire. Oh God. She backed away from the door, looking around the room for something, anything she could use as a weapon. There was nothing. Just furniture and expensive decorations that wouldn't stop a bullet. Minutes crawled by. The shouting got closer. Then it stopped. Silence. Selena held her breath. A knock. Selena, it's me. Damien. She unlocked the door. He stepped inside and she saw blood on his shirt. Not a lot, but enough. Are you hurt? It's not mine. He closed the door behind him. We had visitors. They're dealt with. Dealt with. You don't want details. He was right. She didn't. This is what my life is going to be now, isn't it? She said quietly. Running, hiding, waiting for the next attack. I'm working on a solution. What kind of solution? The permanent kind. She didn't ask what that meant. She was starting to understand that in Damien's world, permanent solutions usually involved blood. I need you to trust me, he said. I don't even know you. Then get to know me. He looked at her, really looked at her, and she felt that pull again, the one that had drawn her to him in the first place. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm not asking you to forgive me for dragging you into this. I'm just asking you to let me keep you safe. And if I say no, then we're both dead, and so are they. He glanced down at her stomach where 3 lives were growing that neither of them had planned for. Selena swallowed hard. Okay, she whispered. Okay. It wasn't trust. Not yet. But it was the closest thing to surrender she could manage, and in Damien Wolf's world, maybe that was enough. But the days blurred together. Selina learned the rhythms of the estate, when the guards changed shifts, when Victoria took her afternoon tea, when Damien disappeared into his office for hours at a time. She learned which hallways to avoid and which staff members would actually talk to her instead of just nodding politely. Natasha became something close to a friend. She'd show up at random times with food or wine or just company, and slowly, Selina started to understand the dynamics of the family she'd been dragged into. Victoria was ice, beautiful, controlled, and ruthless. She'd built half the empire herself before handing it to Damien, and she expected perfection from everyone around her. Natasha was fire, reckless, sharp-tongued, desperate to prove herself in a world that saw her as decorative rather than dangerous. And Damien was the storm, unpredictable, devastating, impossible to look away from. He kept his distance most of the time, but Selina felt him watching, in the hallways, at dinner, through the windows when she walked in the gardens. She told herself she didn't care. She was lying. 2 weeks after she arrived, Damien knocked on her door at midnight. "Can I come in?" Selina tightened the robe she was wearing. "It's late." "I know. I wanted to check on you." She let him in because refusing felt like more effort than it was worth. He stood awkwardly near the door, hands in his pockets, looking more uncertain than she'd ever seen him. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Pregnant, terrified, trapped. Take your pick." "I'm sorry." "For which part?" "All of it," he exhaled. "I never meant for this to happen." "Yeah, well, it did." Silence stretched between them. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. "That night?" Selina wanted to say yes. She wanted to throw it in his face, make him hurt the way she was hurting, but when she opened her mouth, the truth came out instead. "No," she whispered. "I don't regret it. I regret everything that came after, but not that night." Something in his expression softened. "Neither do I." He left before she could say anything else, and Selina lay awake for hours, hating herself for the way her heart had jumped when he smiled. The attack came 3 days later. Selina was in the library, a room she'd claimed as her own because no one else seemed to use it, when the alarms went off. Not the house alarm. Something deeper, louder. She ran to the door and nearly collided with Marcus. "Come with me, now." "What's happening?" "Basement, move." He grabbed her hand and pulled her down a hallway she'd never been in before, through a door hidden behind a bookshelf, down a flight of stairs into a concrete bunker that looked like it could survive an airstrike. Natasha was already there, along with Victoria and half a dozen guards. "Where's Damien?" Selina asked. "Handling it," Victoria said coldly. "Handling what?" No one answered. Selina sat on a bench and tried not to think about the sound of gunfire echoing through the house above them. Tried not to think about Damien up there, fighting people who wanted to kill him. An hour passed. Then 2. Finally, the door opened. Damien walked in, covered in blood, limping slightly, but alive. Selina was on her feet before she realized she'd moved. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "You're bleeding." "Flesh wound." He looked at Marcus. "How many?" "6 got through. We took down 4. 2 escaped." Damien's jaw tightened. "Find them." "Already on it." He turned to Selina. "We need to talk." They went upstairs to his office, a dark room with heavy curtains and a desk that looked like it weighed more than a car. He poured himself a drink and downed it in one go. "This is escalating," he said. "I noticed. The people attacking us aren't random. They're organized, funded. Someone's coordinating them." "Who?" "I don't know yet, but I will." He set the glass down. "Until then, I need you to do exactly what I say. No arguments, no exceptions. You can't just order me around. I can when your life depends on it." They stared at each other, tension crackling like electricity. "I'm not your soldier, Damien. No, you're the mother of my children, which makes you more important than any soldier I have." The words hit her harder than she expected. "Don't," she said quietly. "Don't say things like that if you don't mean them." "I mean every word." He crossed the room, and suddenly he was right in front of her, close enough that she could feel the heat coming off his skin. "Selina," he said, and her name in his voice sounded like a prayer. "I know you didn't choose this. I know you hate me. But I need you to understand something. What? Those babies you're carrying? They're not just heirs, they're everything. My enemies know that. They will stop at nothing to take them from me. From you. So what do? We fight. His hand came up, hesitating just inches from her face. Together. Selina should have stepped back, should have reminded him that this was all his fault, that she was only here because he dragged her into his nightmare. Instead, she leaned forward and kissed him. It was desperate and angry and raw, and when he kissed her back, she felt like she was falling and flying at the same time. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she saw the same confusion in his eyes that she felt. "This doesn't change anything," she whispered. "I know." But they both knew she was lying. Everything had just changed, and there was no going back. The kiss should have been a mistake. Selina knew that the moment she pulled away from Damien, saw the way his eyes had gone dark and hungry. But her body didn't care about logic, and neither did the part of her heart that remembered what it felt like to be wanted. "This complicates things," he said, voice rough. "Everything's already complicated." Fair point. He stepped back, putting distance between them like he didn't trust himself not to close it again. Selina wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold. "I should go," she said. "Selina, don't. Just don't." She left before he could finish, before she could do something even stupider, like stay. Back in her room, she sat on the edge of the bed and pressed her hands to her stomach. Still flat. Still just her. But in a few months, there would be 3 tiny humans depending on her for everything, and she didn't even know how to keep herself alive in this world. A soft knock interrupted her spiral. "It's me," Natasha called through the door. Selina let her in. Natasha took one look at her face and whistled low. "You kissed him. How did you have that look? Like you just did something you can't take back." She flopped onto the bed. "So? How was it?" Natasha. "What? I'm curious. My brother doesn't exactly do relationships. You might be the first woman he's actually given a damn about in years. He doesn't give a damn about me. He cares about the babies." "Keep telling yourself that." Natasha sat up, expression turning serious. "Look, I know Damien can be intense, and I know this whole situation is insane. But he's trying. That counts for something." "Does it? Because from where I'm sitting, trying isn't enough. I'm still trapped here, still in danger, still completely out of my depth." "Then learn to swim." Selina laughed bitterly. "Easy for you to say. You grew up in this world. And you think that makes it easier?" Natasha's voice went sharp. "I've spent my entire life being told I'm not enough. Not smart enough to handle business. Not ruthless enough to lead. Not man enough to matter. You know what Damien did last year when I asked to take on more responsibility? He gave me charity work. Fundraisers and galas. Like I'm some delicate thing that'll break if I get my hands dirty. I didn't know. Nobody does. Because in this family, you smile and you shut up and you play your role." She looked at Selina. "But you don't have a role yet, which means you get to decide what you become." "I don't want to become anything. I just want to survive." "Then start there. Survive. And maybe while you're at it, teach my brother that not everything is solved with money or guns." Natasha left, and Selina lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Survive. It sounded simple. It was anything but. The next morning, Damien was gone. "Business," Marcus said when Selina asked at breakfast. "He'll be back in a few days." Victoria barely looked up from her coffee. "Eat something. You're too thin." "I'm fine." "You're carrying triplets. Fine isn't good enough." She gestured to the cook, who immediately began piling food onto Selina's plate. Protein, vegetables, none of that processed garbage I'm sure you lived on before. Selina wanted to argue, but her stomach was already growling. She ate in silence while Victoria watched her like a hawk studying prey. "Tell me something," Victoria said finally. "Do you love my son?" Selina nearly choked on her eggs. "What?" "Simple question. Do you love him?" "I barely know him." "That's not what I asked." Selina set down her fork. "No, I don't love him. I don't even like him most of the time." "Good." "Good?" "Love makes people weak. Damien doesn't need weak. He needs someone who can stand beside him without falling apart when things get difficult." Victoria's eyes were cold, calculating. Those babies make you family whether you like it or not. The question is whether you'll be an asset or a liability. I'm a person, not a chess piece. In this world, you're both. Victoria stood, smoothing her skirt. There's a doctor coming this afternoon. Prenatal checkup. Don't make a fuss. She left, and Selena sat alone at a table big enough for 20, feeling smaller than she had in years. The doctor was a woman in her 50s with gentle hands and a no-nonsense attitude. She did the exam in Selena's room, brought her own portable ultrasound, and didn't ask questions about why a patient needed a house call to a fortified estate. Everything looks good, she said, pointing at the screen. 3 healthy heartbeats. You're about 14 weeks along now. Selena stared at the grainy images. 3 tiny shapes, moving slightly. Real. So impossibly real. They're okay? More than okay. Strong. You're doing well too, considering the stress you're under. How do you... I've been Damien Wolf's physician for 10 years. I know stress when I see it. She handed Selena some printouts of the ultrasound. Take your vitamins, get rest, try not to let them see you sweat. Them? The vultures. The doctor packed up her equipment. This family will eat you alive if you let them. Don't let them. She left, and Selena held the ultrasound images, tracing the tiny shapes with her finger. 3 lives. 3 futures that depended entirely on whether she could figure out how to be strong enough. Damien came back 3 days later looking like he hadn't slept. Selena was in the library when he found her, curled up in an armchair with a book she wasn't actually reading. "Hey," he said from the doorway. "Hey." He came in slowly, like he was approaching something wild that might bolt. "Can we talk?" "About what?" "About the kiss. About us. About what happens next." Selena closed the book. "There is no us." "Selena." "No, listen to me." She stood, facing him. "That kiss was a mistake. We're stuck in an impossible situation, and our hormones or whatever got confused, but it can't happen again." "Why not?" "Because I don't trust you. Because you dragged me into this nightmare. Because every time I start to think maybe you're not the monster everyone says you are, I remember that you run an empire built on violence and crime. I never pretended to be anything else." "I know. That's the problem." He crossed the room until he was close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. "I'm trying to protect you. I didn't ask for your protection. I asked for my freedom. And I told you why I can't give you that. Then we have nothing to talk about." She tried to walk past him. He caught her wrist, gentle but firm. "I found out who's behind the attacks," he said quietly. Selena froze. "Who?" "Someone who wants me dead and thinks taking you is the best way to make that happen." He let go of her wrist. "His name is Vincent Marcello. He used to work for me until I caught him skimming profits and dealing on the side. I exiled him instead of killing him. Guess he didn't appreciate the mercy." "What does he want?" "Revenge. Power. You." Damien's jaw clenched. He knows about the babies. He's been spreading rumors, making alliances with families who've wanted me gone for years. If he gets his hands on you, he'll use those children as leverage to destroy everything I've built. Then give him what he wants. "What?" "Walk away. Dismantle your empire. Let him have it." Damien laughed, but there was no humor in it. "It doesn't work like that. You don't just walk away from this life. The only way out is death." "That's not true." "It is. And even if I could walk away, it wouldn't save you. Vincent doesn't want the empire. He wants me to suffer, which means he'd hurt you just to watch me break." The weight of it settled over Selena like a blanket of ice. "So what do we do?" "We end him before he ends us." "You mean kill him?" "I mean, remove the threat. Permanently." Selena's stomach turned. "I can't be part of that." "You already are. The moment you got pregnant, you became part of this world whether you wanted to or not." He stepped closer. "I know you hate this. I know you hate me. But I need you to trust me long enough to keep you alive." "And then what?" "I raised 3 kids in a world where people solve problems with bullets." "No. You raise them somewhere safe, somewhere far away from all of this." She looked up sharply. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that once this threat is dealt with, once I know you're safe, I'll set you up somewhere else. New name, new life, enough money that you'll never have to work another double shift again." His voice softened. You can have the freedom you want, just not yet. It sounded too good to be true. And in Selena's experience, things that sounded too good to be true usually were. What's the catch? No catch. Damien, he hesitated. The babies stay part of my life. I don't care if you hate me, but those kids deserve to know their father. The father who runs a criminal empire. The father who will do everything in his power to give them a better life than the one he had. His eyes were intense, burning. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to let me prove that I can be more than what you think I am. Selena wanted to say no, wanted to throw his offer back in his face, but 3 tiny heartbeats were growing inside her, and they deserved a chance even if she wasn't sure she did. Okay, she whispered, but if you get me killed, I'm haunting you for eternity. Deal. He almost smiled, and for a second she saw the man from the bar again, the one who'd made her laugh, the one she'd wanted to know better. Then his phone rang, and he was back to being Damien Wolfe, crime lord and king of shadows. I have to take this, he said. She nodded, and he left. Selena stood alone in the library, holding the ultrasound images, wondering if she'd just made a deal with the devil, or if maybe, just maybe, there was something human left in Damien Wolfe after all. The answer came 2 nights later when someone tried to kill her. She was asleep when the window shattered. Glass exploded across the floor, and before Selena could even scream, a figure dressed in black was climbing through. She rolled out of bed, grabbed the lamp from the nightstand, and threw it. It hit the intruder in the shoulder. He barely flinched. Selena Hayes, he said, voice distorted by a mask. Vincent sends his regards. He lunged. Selena ran for the door, but he was faster. He caught her by the hair, yanked her back, and she went down hard. Her head cracked against the floor, and stars burst behind her eyes. Easy, he said. Vincent wants you alive. Doesn't mean I can't have a little fun first. His hand went to his belt, and Selena saw the knife. Terror turned into something sharper. She twisted, drove her knee into his groin, and when he doubled over, she grabbed a shard of glass from the floor and jammed it into his neck. Blood sprayed. He made a gurgling sound and stumbled back. Selena scrambled to her feet, hands shaking, covered in blood that wasn't hers. The door crashed open. Damien stood there with a gun, Marcus right behind him, and the look on his face when he saw the body on the floor was pure murder. Are you hurt? He demanded. No, I don't think so. He crossed to her in 3 strides, hands on her face, checking her over like he was cataloging every inch. You're bleeding. It's his blood, not mine. Marcus was already on the phone, calling for cleanup. Damien pulled Selena out of the room, down the hall, into his office. He locked the door and finally let go of her. What the hell happened? He came through the window, said Vincent sent him. She was shaking so hard she could barely stand. He had a knife. I didn't know what else to do. You did exactly what you should have done. Damien poured her a glass of something amber and strong. Drink. She did. It burned going down, but it steadied her hands. This is my life now, she said quietly. People breaking into my room, fighting for my life, killing people. I'm moving you to a more secure wing, bulletproof windows, guards outside your door. That's not the point. Then what is? The point is, I can't live like this. Her voice cracked. I can't spend every night wondering if someone's going to kill me. I can't raise children in a world where their mother has to stab people just to survive. You won't have to. I'm ending this. How? By doing what I should have done the first time. His eyes went cold. Vincent wanted a war. He's about to get one. The next 72 hours were chaos. Damien disappeared into strategy sessions with Marcus and his lieutenants. Natasha was sent to a safe house upstate. Victoria locked herself in her office, making calls to allies and burning bridges with enemies. And Selena sat in her new room, bigger, more secure, more like a prison, and waited. On the 3rd night, Damien came to her room at 2 a.m, still wearing tactical gear and smelling like gunpowder. It's done, he said. Vincent? Dead, along with most of his operation. Selena should have felt relieved. Instead, she just felt numb. How many people died? Does it matter? Yes. He looked at her for a long moment. 15, including Vincent. 15 lives, gone, because of her, because of the babies she was carrying. I think I'm going to be sick. She barely made it to the bathroom before she threw up. Damien held her hair back, silent, and when she was done, he handed her a towel. This is who I am, he said quietly. This is what I do, and I won't apologize for protecting what's mine. I'm not yours. You're carrying my children. That makes you mine whether you like it or not. The possessiveness in his voice should have made her angry. Instead, it made her feel something else entirely, something dangerous. I need you to leave, she whispered. Selena, please, just go. He left. And Selena sat on the bathroom floor, arms wrapped around her knees, and cried for the life she'd lost and the woman she was becoming. Morning came too fast. Victoria summoned her to breakfast, and Selena went because refusing seemed like more trouble than it was worth. The dining room was empty except for the two of them. Sit, Victoria said. Selena sat. Victoria poured coffee, decaf, because apparently even she drew the line at caffeine for pregnant women, and slid the cup across the table. Vincent Marcello is dead, she said. But he was just the beginning. There will be others. Men who think they can use you against my son. Men who see those babies as a weakness to exploit. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you look like a frightened girl playing dress-up in a world she doesn't understand. Then what do you want me to be? Strong, ruthless, smart enough to know when to smile and when to strike. Victoria leaned forward. Damien may be willing to hide you away, keep you safe in a gilded cage, but I know better. Safety is an illusion. The only way to truly survive in this world is to become someone no one dares to touch. And how do I do that? By learning everything, how this empire works, who our enemies are, where the power lies. Victoria's eyes glittered. I can teach you, if you're willing to learn. Selena thought about the man who'd broken into her room, the way she'd driven glass into his throat without hesitation, the blood on her hands. Maybe she was already becoming someone no one dared to touch. When do we start? She asked. Victoria smiled. It wasn't warm, but it was real. Right now. For the next 2 weeks, Selena's education began. Victoria taught her the structure of Damien's empire, the legitimate businesses that laundered money, the shipping routes that moved product, the politicians and cops who looked the other way. She learned names and faces, learned who could be trusted and who would sell them out for the right price. Natasha taught her how to handle a gun. They practiced in the estate's private range, and Selena discovered she had decent aim when she wasn't shaking with fear. Marcus taught her how to spot a threat, how to move through a room, how to know when someone was lying. And Damien watched. He didn't interfere with her training, didn't try to stop it, but she felt his eyes on her constantly, like he was trying to figure out if he'd created something brilliant or something that would eventually destroy him. One night, 3 weeks after Vincent's death, Selena found Damien in his office, staring at a chessboard. Do you play? He asked without looking up. No. Want to learn? She sat across from him. He showed her the pieces, explained the moves, and within minutes, she was hopelessly lost. You're overthinking it, he said, moving his knight. I'm trying not to lose. Sometimes losing is how you learn to win. She studied the board, moved her pawn, and watched him capture it immediately. That was fast. You left yourself open. Story of my life. He looked up at that, really looked at her, and something passed between them. Understanding? Maybe. Or recognition. My mother's been teaching you, he said. Is that a problem? I don't know yet. He leaned back in his chair. She's dangerous. Brilliant, but dangerous. So are you. Fair point. They played in silence for a while. Selena lost badly, but she learned the patterns, started to see the strategy. Why didn't you tell me about Vincent before? She asked finally. Because I didn't want you to be afraid. I'm always afraid now. I know, and I'm sorry for that. She moved her queen, realized too late it was a mistake, and watched him capture it. Checkmate in 3 moves, he said. Show me. He did. And she memorized the pattern, thinking about how everything in his world was like chess, strategy and sacrifice, knowing when to advance and when to retreat. Teach me more, she said. More chess, more everything. I don't want to be afraid anymore. Damien's expression shifted into something she couldn't read. You sure about that? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Then we start tomorrow. He taught her about leverage and loyalty, about reading people and reading situations. He showed her the legitimate side of his business, the real estate holdings, the investment portfolios, the front companies that made him look like a businessman instead of a criminal. And slowly, Selena started to understand the man behind the reputation. Damian Wolf wasn't just ruthless. He was smart, calculating. He thought 10 steps ahead and never made a move without knowing the consequences. But he was also lonely. She saw it in the way he worked late into the night, the way he kept everyone at arm's length except for the rare moments when his guard dropped. One of those moments came late one night when Selena couldn't sleep. She found him in the garden, sitting on a bench, staring at nothing. "You okay?" she asked. "Couldn't sleep." "Me neither. The babies won't stop moving." "That's good, right? Means they're healthy." "Yeah, just uncomfortable." She sat beside him. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything, nothing." He exhaled slowly. "Did my mother tell you why I took over the family business?" "No. My father was supposed to pass it to me when I turned 25, but he died 2 years early. Heart attack. Very convenient for the people who wanted him gone." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. He was a bastard. Cruel. He taught me that power was the only thing that mattered." Damien looked at her. "I spent years believing that. Building this empire. Making sure no one could ever take anything from me again. And then you walked into that bar, and for one night, I forgot about all of it." Selena's breath caught. "I didn't know who you were," she whispered. "I know. That's why I came back, why I bought you another drink, why I listened when you talked about your dreams." His voice went rough. "You looked at me like I was just a man, not a king, not a monster, just someone. You were someone. That night. And now." She didn't know how to answer that, because now he was both. The man who'd made her laugh, and the criminal who'd killed 15 people without blinking. "Now I don't know what you are," she said honestly. "Yeah, me neither." They sat in silence, shoulders almost touching, both of them caught between who they'd been and who they were becoming. And somewhere deep inside Selena, something shifted. Not love, not yet, but the beginning of something that scared her more than any threat Vincent Marcello had ever posed. The possibility that she might actually start to care. The possibility terrified her more than she wanted to admit. Selena stood from the bench, needing distance before she did something stupid like reach for his hand. "I should get some sleep." "Selena, wait!" She stopped but didn't turn around. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for not running, for staying, for trying. I didn't have much choice." "You always have a choice." She looked back at him then, saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried that never seemed to get lighter. "So do you." She left him in the garden and went back to her room, but sleep didn't come. She lay awake thinking about the way he'd looked at her, the way his voice had cracked when he talked about his father, the way she'd almost reached for him. This wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to see him as anything other than her captor, the man who'd destroyed her life. But the lines were blurring, and she didn't know how to make them solid again. Morning brought a distraction she desperately needed. Marcus appeared at her door with a phone. "Call for you." "Who is it?" "Damien didn't say, just told me to give you privacy." She took the phone into the bathroom and closed the door. "Hello? Selena? Oh my God, Selena, is that really you?" The voice hit her like a punch. "Jenna?" Jenna Martinez had been her co-worker at the diner, the closest thing Selena had to a friend in the city. They'd worked the same shifts, covered for each other, shared cigarettes in the alley during breaks, even though neither of them really smoked. "Where the hell have you been?" Jenna demanded. "You disappeared 3 months ago. No call, no text, nothing. I thought you were dead." "I'm sorry, I couldn't. It's complicated." "Complicated? Selena, the cops came asking questions. Your landlord cleared out your apartment. Everyone thought something happened to you." Guilt twisted in Selena's stomach. "I'm okay, I promise." "Where are you?" "I can't tell you that." "What? Why not?" "Because it's not safe. For either of us." Silence on the other end. Then, "Are you in trouble?" "It's complicated," Selena said again, because what else could she say? That she was pregnant with a crime lord's babies and living in his fortress while people tried to kill her? That sounded insane even in her own head. I'm coming to get you, Jenna said. Tell me where you are. No, Jenna, listen to me. You can't. I need you to trust me on this. Trust you? You vanished without a word. I know. And I'm sorry, but I'm safe. I'm taken care of. I needed to hear your voice. Jenna's breath hitched. You're scaring me. I'm okay. I swear. For how long? Selena didn't have an answer to that. They talked for another 10 minutes, Jenna filling her in on diner gossip and neighborhood drama, and Selena held on to every word like a lifeline to the world she'd left behind. When they finally hung up, Selena sat on the bathroom floor and let herself cry. She missed her old life. The shitty apartment with the leaky faucet, the double shifts that left her feet aching, the freedom to walk down the street without armed guards following 3 steps behind. But that life was gone, and the woman who'd lived it was disappearing too. A knock on the door pulled her back. Selena, you in there? Natasha. Selena wiped her face and opened the door. Yeah. Natasha took one look at her and sighed. Rough call? Something like that. Come on, I'm taking you out. Out where? Shopping. You need maternity clothes, and I need an excuse to spend Damien's money. She grinned. Plus, you look like you could use some air that doesn't smell like testosterone and gunpowder. 20 minutes later, they were in an SUV with 3 armed guards, heading into the city. Selena pressed her face to the window, watching the world blur past, and for the first time in months, she felt something close to normal. The boutique Natasha chose was expensive enough that Selena felt guilty breathing the air. A saleswoman descended on them immediately, all fake smiles and sizing glances. We need maternity wear, Natasha said. She's carrying triplets, so think comfortable but still hot. Natasha, Selena hissed. What? You're pregnant, not dead. Might as well look good. The saleswoman brought out armfuls of clothes, and Selena tried on outfit after outfit while Natasha sprawled in a chair, offering commentary. Too boring. Too frumpy. Oh, that one's perfect. Makes your boobs look amazing. I'm not trying to show off my boobs. Why not? They're fantastic. Selena caught herself laughing, really laughing, and it felt strange after months of tension and fear. Natasha noticed and smiled. There she is, she said softly. The woman my brother couldn't stop thinking about. He doesn't think about me. Please. He's been obsessed since the night he met you. Drove me crazy, actually. I'd never seen him like that before. Selena turned away, pretending to examine a dress. What was he like before? Cold. Focused. He'd date women sometimes, but it never lasted more than a few weeks. He said relationships were liabilities. Natasha leaned forward. Then you happened, and suddenly Mr. Ice King was asking me about flowers and restaurants and how to not come across like a controlling psychopath on a second date. We never had a second date. I know. He was planning it when you disappeared. Spent 2 weeks trying to track you down before he finally gave up and threw himself back into work. The image of Damien looking for her, wanting to see her again, made something ache in Selena's chest. That doesn't change what he is, she said quietly. No, but it changes why he does it. Natasha stood, came over, put a hand on her shoulder. My brother isn't a good man, Selena, but he's trying to be better for you, for those babies. That's more than most men in his position would do. They bought half the store and loaded everything into the SUV. On the drive back, Selena stared out the window and thought about the man waiting at the estate, the one who somehow managed to be both her prison and her protection. The gates came into view, and Selena's stomach dropped. Something was wrong. There were too many cars, too many people. The guards at the entrance looked tense, hands near their weapons. Marcus was waiting when they pulled up. His face was grim. What happened? Natasha demanded. Your mother called a meeting. The families are here. Which families? All of them. Natasha went pale. Selena didn't understand why until they walked into the house and saw the dining room packed with men in expensive suits, all of them radiating the kind of danger that made her want to run. Damien stood at the head of the table, and when he saw Selena, something flashed in his eyes. Relief, worry, anger at himself for feeling either. Victoria sat to his right, cool and composed. She gestured to an empty chair. Selena, join us. I don't think... That wasn't a request. Selena sat. Natasha took the seat beside her, hand finding hers under the table and squeezing once. A warning, Or comfort, maybe both. Damien's voice cut through the murmurs. Now that everyone's here, let's get started. An older man with silver hair and a scar across his cheek leaned forward. We're here because you've created a problem, Wolf. Vincent's dead, but his allies aren't, and they're using your little situation to rally support. My little situation has a name, Damien said coldly. Does she? Because from where I'm sitting, she's just another complication in a very complicated game. Selena felt every eye in the room turn to her. She forced herself to meet their stares, chin up, refusing to show fear even though her heart was racing. Selena Hayes is carrying my heirs, Damien said. That makes her untouchable. Anyone who thinks otherwise is welcome to test that theory. Brave words, another man said. This one was younger, sharper, with eyes like a snake. But words don't stop bullets. Vincent proved that. Vincent's dead, also proving something. For now, but there are others. The Castellanos are mobilizing. The Reyes family is asking questions. Even the Kozlovs are sniffing around, wondering if the great Damien Wolf has finally found a weakness they can exploit. Then let them come. I'll bury them next to Vincent. Victoria's hand came down on the table. Enough. Posturing won't solve this. Then what will? The silver-haired man asked. Unity. Victoria looked around the room. Vincent made the mistake of thinking he could take on the Wolf family alone. The others won't make that mistake. They'll form alliances, pool resources, come at us from every direction at once. So we strike first, Damien said. No. We make them understand that attacking us would be suicide. Victoria's eyes gleamed. But we show them that Selena isn't a weakness. She's a strength. How? Selena heard herself ask. Everyone looked at her. She swallowed hard but didn't back down. Victoria smiled. By making you one of us. Officially. Mother, no, Damien started. It's the only way. The families respect bloodlines, marriage, legitimate heirs. Victoria stood. Damien marries Selena. The babies are born into the family with full protection of our name and our allies. And anyone who moves against her moves against all of us. The room erupted. Men shouting over each other, some agreeing, others arguing, all of them talking about Selena like she wasn't sitting right there. Damien's voice cut through the chaos. Everyone out, now! They filed out slowly, reluctantly, still muttering. When the room was finally empty except for Damien, Victoria, Natasha, and Selena, the silence was suffocating. You can't be serious, Damien said to his mother. I'm completely serious. It's the smartest move. It's insane. It's strategy. Something you used to understand before you let your feelings cloud your judgment. My feelings have nothing to do with this. Don't they? Victoria looked at Selena. What do you think? I think I don't get a say in any of this, Selena said bitterly, just like everything else. You're right. You don't. Victoria's tone was matter-of-fact. But you're smart enough to see the logic. Marriage gives you legal protection, financial security, power, and it gives those babies legitimacy in a world where that matters more than love or choice. I won't force her, Damien said. Then you're a fool. Victoria headed for the door. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, I'm making the decision for you. She left. Natasha squeezed Selena's hand once more, then followed. Alone with Damien, Selena finally let herself feel the full weight of what had just happened. This is crazy, she whispered. I know. I can't marry you. I know that too. Then why aren't you telling your mother no? He turned to face her, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. Because she's right. Marriage would protect you in ways I can't. It would make you untouchable. I don't want to be untouchable. I want to be free. You can't have both, not in this world. Selena stood, needed to move, to think, to breathe. So my choices are marry you or spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. Or I find you a way out, set you up far away from here, new identity, new life, you'd be safe. And the babies? Would be mine, legally. You'd give up custody. The words hit like a slap. Give up her children, never see them again. Let them grow up in this world of violence and danger while she ran away and pretended none of it ever happened. I can't do that either, she said. Then what do you want? I don't know, her voice cracked. I don't know what I want because every option is terrible. Marry you and become part of this nightmare forever, or give up my kids and lose the only good thing that's come from any of this. Damien crossed to her, and she didn't pull away when he took her hands. There's a third option. What? We do this on our terms. Get married, but make it clear it's a business arrangement. Separate lives. Separate rooms. You get the protection of my name, I get to know my children are safe. When they're old enough, when the threats are gone, we can quietly divorce, and you can have the freedom you want. It sounded reasonable, logical, everything Victoria would approve of. But Selena looked at Damien's face, saw the way his jaw was tight, the way his eyes held something she couldn't name, and knew it was a lie. There was nothing businesslike about the way he looked at her, nothing separate about the way her heart jumped when he was near. If they got married, even as an arrangement, it would never stay clean, never stay simple. But what choice did she have? Okay, she whispered. His hands tightened on hers. Okay, let's do it. The business arrangement, the marriage. She met his eyes. But I have conditions. Name them. I want access to everything. Money, information, decisions about the babies. I'm not going to be some trophy wife you parade around when it's convenient. Done. And when this is over, when the kids are safe and old enough to understand, we tell them the truth. No lies about how we fell in love, no fairy tale ending. They deserve honesty. Agreed. And if I change my mind, if I decide I can't do this, you let me go. No arguments, no threats. He hesitated on that one. Selena, that's the deal, Damien. Take it or leave it. He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but the same goes for you. If I need to end this, you don't fight me on it. Fine. They stood there, hands still clasped, both of them knowing they'd just agreed to something that would change everything. When? Selena asked. The sooner the better. My mother will want a big wedding, public, a show of strength. Of course she will. I'll try to keep it small. Don't bother. If we're doing this, we might as well do it right. She pulled her hands free. I need air. She left before he could respond, went straight to the garden, and sat on the same bench where they'd talked the night before. The stars were out, cold and distant, and Selena wrapped her arms around herself and tried to figure out how her life had become this unrecognizable. Footsteps on gravel. She didn't have to look to know it was Natasha. So you're really doing it, Natasha said, sitting beside her. Looks that way. How do you feel? Like I'm making a huge mistake. Probably, but it's your mistake to make. Natasha bumped her shoulder. For what it's worth, I think you're good for him. He's different when you're around, less cold, more human. I'm not trying to fix him. I know. That's why it's working. They sat in silence, and Selena wondered if there was a version of this story where things turned out okay, where she didn't end up broken or dead, or so far gone she didn't recognize herself anymore. She couldn't see it. But maybe that was the point. Maybe survival meant walking into the dark and hoping you found light on the other side. The wedding was planned for 2 weeks later. Victoria took over the arrangements with the efficiency of a general planning a campaign. Guest lists, seating charts, security protocols. Nothing was left to chance. Selena was fitted for a dress she didn't want, taught how to smile for photos she didn't want taken, briefed on family politics she didn't care about. It was exhausting and surreal, and she kept waiting to wake up from the nightmare. But the nightmare was real, and it was about to become permanent. 3 days before the wedding, Selena woke up bleeding. Not much, just spotting, but enough to send panic shooting through her veins. She called for help, and within minutes the doctor was there, doing an ultrasound with hands that shook slightly despite her calm voice. There, she said finally, pointing at the screen. 3 heartbeats, all strong. Then why am I bleeding? Stress. Your body's under incredible pressure. The babies are fine, but you need to rest. Actual rest. No stress. No drama. I'm getting married in 3 days to a man I barely know, so people will stop trying to kill me. Drama's kind of unavoidable. The doctor looked at her seriously. Then you need to decide what's more important, this wedding or these babies. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you could lose all 3. The words hit like ice water. Selena lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of 3 lives depending on her to hold it together. She couldn't fall apart. Not now. Not ever. When the doctor left, Damien appeared in the doorway. I heard. Are you okay? The babies are fine. That's not what I asked. Selena looked at him, really looked at him, and saw genuine fear in his eyes. Fear for her, for the children, for everything hanging in the balance. I'm terrified, she admitted. I'm terrified that I'm going to lose them, that I'm going to lose myself, that I'm going to wake up one day and not recognize the person I've become. He came into the room, sat on the edge of the bed. You're the strongest person I've ever met. I'm not strong. I'm just out of options. Same thing in my experience. She almost smiled. Is that how you got here? Out of options? Something like that. He reached for her hand, hesitated, then took it anyway. I know this isn't what you wanted. I know I'm not what you wanted, but I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you and those babies survive this. That's a promise. Promises are easy. Keeping them is hard. Then watch me. He meant it. She could see it in his eyes, hear it in his voice. And for the first time since this all started, Selena believed him. Okay, she whispered. I'm trusting you. Don't make me regret it. I'll try not to. He stayed with her until she fell asleep, his hand wrapped around hers, and when Selena dreamed, it wasn't of violence or danger or death. It was of a man with dark eyes and a damaged heart, fighting demons she couldn't see, trying to be better than the world that made him. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The morning of the wedding arrived too fast. Selena stood in front of a mirror in a dress that cost more than her old apartment, looking at a stranger. The woman staring back was beautiful, polished, perfect. Everything Selena Hayes had never been. You look incredible, Natasha said from behind her. I look like a fraud. Same thing at these kinds of events, Natasha adjusted the veil. Just smile and pretend you know what you're doing. That's how the rest of us survive. Victoria appeared, resplendent in silver, and gave Selena a once-over that would have made a lesser woman crumble. You'll do, she said finally. Thanks for the glowing endorsement. Don't be sarcastic. It's unbecoming. But there was something almost like approval in Victoria's eyes. You're about to become a wolf. That means something in this world. Don't forget it. How could I? The ceremony was held in the estate's ballroom, transformed into something out of a magazine. Flowers everywhere. Hundreds of guests. Armed guards masquerading as waiters. Selena walked down the aisle alone because she had no one to give her away, and when she reached the front, Damien was waiting. He looked different in a tuxedo. Less dangerous. More like the man from the bar who'd made her laugh. But his eyes told a different story. They were hard, watchful, scanning the crowd for threats even as he took her hand. The officiant spoke words Selena barely heard. Something about love and commitment and forever. All lies. Beautiful lies. Then came the vows. I, Damien Wolf, take you, Selena Hayes, to be my wife. To protect. To honor. To stand beside in darkness and light. His voice was steady. No hesitation. Selena's turn. She looked at him and saw the boy who'd lost his father too young, the man who'd built an empire out of pain, the person trying desperately to be better than his worst impulses. I, Selena Hayes, take you, Damien Wolf, to be my husband, to challenge, to stand with, to remind that power isn't the same as strength. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise. Maybe respect. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Damien leaned in, and Selena met him halfway. The kiss was gentle, almost careful, nothing like the desperate collision in his office weeks ago. But when they pulled apart, she saw something in his eyes that made her chest tight. This was supposed to be fake. A business arrangement. A means to an end. So why did it feel real? The reception was a blur of faces and names Selena would never remember. People congratulated them with smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Alliances were made and broken over champagne, and through it all, Damien never left her side. You're doing great, he murmured during a lull. I'm exhausted. 2 more hours, then we can escape. Where are we going? Nowhere. But my mother doesn't need to know that. She almost laughed. But then she saw the man across the room, tall, dark-haired, watching her with eyes that made her skin crawl. Damien, she said quietly. Who's that? He followed her gaze and went very still. That's Lorenzo Castellano, one of Vincent's old allies. What's he doing here? Victoria invited the Castellanos as a show of good faith. Apparently, Lorenzo decided to come personally. Is that bad? Very. Lorenzo started walking toward them. Damien's hand went to Selina's waist, pulling her closer. Mr. Wolf, Lorenzo said, all charm and venom. Congratulations on your marriage. Castellano, surprised to see you here. I wouldn't miss it. Such a beautiful bride. He looked at Selina like she was prey. You must be very special to tame the infamous Damien Wolf. I didn't tame anyone, Selina said coolly. No? Then what would you call this? He gestured around the room. A notorious bachelor suddenly married, to a woman with no family, no connections, no power. Fascinating. Watch yourself, Damien said quietly. I'm simply making an observation. Your wife is vulnerable, and in our world, vulnerable things tend to break. The threat was clear. Selina felt Damien tense beside her, felt the violence coiling in him, ready to strike. She put her hand on his arm. Thank you for the warning, Mr. Castellano. I'll be sure to remember that vulnerable things can also surprise you, like Vincent learned. Lorenzo's smile froze. Excuse me? From what I hear, he thought Damien's feelings for me made him weak. Turned out he was wrong, lethally wrong. She stepped closer, ignoring the danger radiating off the man. So if you're planning to make the same mistake, I'd suggest you reconsider. Because I'm not some helpless girl anymore. I'm a wolf. And wolves don't break. The silence stretched. Then Lorenzo laughed, but there was no humor in it. I see why you chose her, he said to Damien. She's got teeth. He walked away and Damien looked at Selina with something like awe. Where did that come from? I don't know, but I meant every word. And she had. Somewhere between the ultrasound and the wedding, between fear and fury, Selina Hayes had become someone new, someone who didn't run, someone who fought back, someone who might actually survive this world after all. The realization of who she'd become should have scared her. Instead, it felt like power. The reception continued around them, but Selina barely noticed. She was too focused on the way Damien was looking at her, like he was seeing her clearly for the first time. We should dance, he said finally. I don't really know how. Neither do I. We'll figure it out. He led her onto the floor, and when his hand settled on her waist, she felt that pull again. The one that had drawn her to him in the first place. The one she'd been trying to ignore for months. You surprised me tonight, he said as they moved. Good. You need surprising. Lorenzo won't forget what you said. I don't want him to. She met his eyes. I meant it. I'm not going to be the weakness everyone thinks I am. You were never weak, just unprepared. And now? Now you're dangerous. His grip tightened slightly. I should probably be worried about that. Probably. They danced in silence for a moment, surrounded by people who would kill them both if they sensed an opening. But right now, in this moment, Selina felt safe, protected, maybe even wanted. It was a lie, she reminded herself. This whole marriage was a lie. A strategy, nothing more. But the way Damien held her didn't feel like strategy. It felt real. The song ended. They separated. And the spell broke. I need some air, Selina said. I'll come with you. I need to be alone. Something flickered in his expression. Hurt, maybe. But he nodded and let her go. Selina walked out onto the terrace, gulping down cool night air, trying to steady herself. The dress felt too tight. The ring on her finger felt too heavy. Everything felt wrong. Running away already? She spun. Lorenzo Castellano stood in the shadows, a glass of champagne in his hand. Following the bride on her wedding night? Selina kept her voice steady. That's creepy even for your world. I wanted to speak with you, privately. We have nothing to talk about. Don't we? You're new to this life. You don't understand how things work. He stepped closer. Damien has enemies, powerful ones, and now you're caught in the crossfire. Thanks for the news flash. I figured that out months ago. Did you also figure out that he'll get you killed? That those babies you're carrying make you a target for every family that wants to bring him down? Yeah, I got that too. Then you must also know there's another option. Lorenzo's voice dropped. Leave him. Come with me. I can offer you protection. A life where you're not constantly looking over your shoulder. Selina laughed. You think I'm stupid enough to trust you? I think you're smart enough to see the truth. Damien Wolfe is a dead man walking. Vincent was just the beginning. The Castellanos, the Reyes, the Kozlovs were all circling, and when we strike, everyone close to him dies. Then why tell me? Why not just wait for your moment? Because I don't want civilian casualties, especially not a pregnant woman. He set down his glass. I'm giving you a way out. Take it before it's too late. No. No? I made my choice. I'm staying. Lorenzo's expression hardened. Then you're a fool. Maybe. But I'm a wolf now, which means if you come for my husband, you come for me too. And I promise you, I won't go down easy. He studied her for a long moment, then smiled, and it was the coldest thing she'd ever seen. We'll see about that. He walked away, and Selina's bravado crumbled. She gripped the terrace railing, hands shaking, wondering if she'd just signed her own death warrant. Footsteps behind her. She didn't turn. How much of that did you hear? She asked. Enough! Damien's voice was tight with barely controlled fury. He threatened you. He offered me a way out. Same thing. She finally looked at him. I turned him down. I know. I heard. He moved beside her, both of them staring out at the dark gardens. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Why? Because I meant what I said in there. I'm not breaking. Not for him. Not for anyone. Damien turned to face her fully. Selina, this is going to get worse before it gets better. The Castellanos aren't bluffing. They're planning something. And when it comes, it's going to be bad. Then we'll deal with it. We? You heard me. She met his eyes. I'm done being the victim in this story. If people are coming for us, I want to know how to fight back. You're 6 months pregnant. So? My brain still works. I can think, plan, help. Absolutely not. You don't get to decide that anymore. We're married now. Partners. Remember? He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. You're serious? Completely. My mother's really gotten to you, hasn't she? Your mother taught me how to survive. Now I want to learn how to win. Something shifted in Damien's expression. Pride, maybe. Or fear for what she was becoming. Okay, he said finally. But we do this my way. No unnecessary risks, no heroics. Deal. They shook on it like business partners, but when their hands touched, the spark was still there. Undeniable. Dangerous. Neither of them let go for longer than necessary. The next morning, Selina's education in violence began in earnest. Marcus took her to the shooting range and ran her through drills until her arms ached. Damien taught her to read body language, Spot tells, know when someone was lying. Victoria showed her financial records, explained how money flowed through the empire, where the weaknesses were. And Natasha taught her the most important lesson of all, how to smile while planning someone's destruction. It's an art form, Natasha explained over lunch. You have to make them think you're harmless while you're sharpening the knife. That's dark. That's survival. Natasha stabbed her salad with more force than necessary. You think I wanted to be the pretty, useless sister? I had to learn to play the game or get crushed by it. You're not useless. Tell that to Damien, or Mother. They still treat me like I'm made of glass. Selina heard the bitterness in her voice and understood it. Then prove them wrong. How? Help me. Teach me everything they won't. Show them you're more than what they think. Natasha looked at her for a long moment, then grinned. You know what? I like the way you think. They spent the afternoon going through intelligence reports, mapping out alliances and enemies, identifying potential threats. Selina absorbed it all like she was studying for a test that would determine whether she lived or died, because she was. That evening, she joined Damien in his office. He looked up from a stack of papers, surprised. What are you doing here? Working? She sat across from him. What are those? Shipping manifests, checking for discrepancies. Can I help? He hesitated, then slid half the stack across the desk. Look for anything that doesn't match the invoices. Quantities. Dates. Routes. They worked in silence for an hour. Selina found 3 irregularities. Damien found 5. Together, they uncovered a pattern that suggested someone was skimming product before it reached the distribution points. Who has access to these shipments? Selina asked. About 20 people. Most of them have been with me for years. But not all of them. No, not all of them. He made a note. I'll have Marcus investigate. Or I could. Selena, I'm serious. Let me talk to them. They won't see me as a threat. I might get further than Marcus would. Damien studied her, clearly weighing the risk against the potential benefit. Fine, but Marcus goes with you, and at the first sign of trouble, you walk away. Agreed. The next day, Selena and Marcus visited the warehouse where the discrepancies had occurred. It was a massive facility on the edge of the city, filled with crates and pallets and workers who looked up nervously when they walked in. The warehouse manager was a man named Tony, mid-40s, with nervous eyes and sweaty palms. Mrs. Wolf, he said, trying to smile. We weren't expecting you. I know, that's the point. Selena kept her voice pleasant. I'm just here to look around, make sure everything's running smoothly. Of course, everything's fine. Great, actually. Good. Then you won't mind showing me the inventory logs from last month. His smile faltered. The logs? Is that a problem? No, no problem. They're not organized very well. Might take a minute to find them. Take your time. She watched him fumble through filing cabinets, saw the way his hands shook, the way he avoided eye contact. He was lying. The question was about what? Here, he said finally, handing her a binder. Selena flipped through it, comparing numbers to what she'd memorized from Damien's office. The discrepancies were there, but they'd been covered up. Someone had altered the records after the fact. These don't match the shipping manifests, she said calmly. They don't? That must be a clerical error. Must be. She closed the binder. Who else has access to these files? Just me and my assistant, and Mr. Wolf, of course. Your assistant, where is he? She. And she's out sick today. Convenient. Tony's face went pale. Mrs. Wolf, I don't know what you're implying, but I'm not implying anything. I'm just asking questions. She handed the binder back to him. But I will be asking them again, with my husband present, and Marcus, and probably a few other people who are very good at getting honest answers. I haven't done anything wrong. Then you have nothing to worry about. She walked toward the exit, then paused. Oh, and Tony, if you think about running, don't. We'll find you, and it won't go well. Outside, Marcus looked impressed. Not bad. He's guilty. Probably, but guilty of what? Stealing or covering for whoever is. Selena pulled out her phone. I need to call Damien. She told him everything. He listened without interrupting, then said, Come home. I'll handle it from here. I want to be there when you question him. Selena, we're partners, remember? I found the discrepancy. I get to see it through. Silence on the other end. Then, fine, but you stay out of the room. Watch from the office. That's non-negotiable. Deal. They brought Tony in that night. Selena watched through one-way glass as Damien and Marcus questioned him. At first, Tony stuck to his story. Clerical errors, misunderstandings, nothing intentional. Then Damien showed him evidence of the altered records. Bank deposits that didn't match his salary. Text messages to known Castellano associates. Tony broke in 20 minutes. They said they'd kill my family, he sobbed. My wife, my kids. Lorenzo Castellano came to me 3 months ago and said if I didn't help him, he'd hurt them. What was I supposed to do? You were supposed to come to me, Damien said coldly. I was scared. Now you should be terrified. Selena watched Damien's face through the glass and saw no mercy there. No forgiveness. Just cold calculation. This was the man she'd married. The one who solved problems with violence. The one who would kill Tony without blinking if he deemed it necessary. She should have been horrified, should have looked away. Instead, she kept watching, learning, understanding. This was survival, ruthless, brutal, necessary. Damien came out of the interrogation room an hour later. He gave up names, locations. The Castellanos have been planning this for months. What are you going to do with him? What do you think? I think you're going to kill him. Damien didn't deny it. He betrayed me, put you at risk, put our children at risk. There are consequences for that. He was trying to protect his family. So am I. They stared at each other, the weight of the decision hanging between them. If I asked you not to, Selena said quietly, would you listen? Why would you ask that? Because I want to know if my opinion matters. If we're really partners, or if that was just something you said to make me cooperate. Damien's jaw tightened. What do you want me to do? I want you to use him. He's already betrayed the Castellanos by talking. Make him a double agent. Feed them false information. Turn their own spy against them. That's risky. So is killing him and losing the intelligence he could provide? Damien studied her and she saw the moment he understood. She wasn't asking him to be merciful. She was asking him to be strategic. You're thinking like them now, he said. Like us. I'm thinking like us. He almost smiled. Okay, we'll try it your way. But if he betrays us again, there won't be a second chance. Fair enough. They left the office together, and Selena felt the shift between them. They were becoming something new. Not husband and wife in the traditional sense. Not captor and prisoner. Something else entirely. Partners. Equals. Two people trying to survive a world that wanted them dead. It should have scared her how natural it felt. The Castellano attack came 3 weeks later. Selena was in the nursery, organizing baby clothes that had arrived that morning when the alarms went off. She knew immediately it wasn't a drill. Marcus burst through the door. Basement, now! What's happening? They breached the south gate, at least 15 men, heavily armed. He rushed her down the hidden stairs into the bunker. Victoria and Natasha were already there, along with a dozen guards. Where's Damien? Selena demanded. Fighting, Victoria said calmly, as he should be. We need to help him. We need to stay alive. That's how we help. Selena wanted to scream, wanted to run upstairs and find him. Instead, she sat down and forced herself to breathe. The babies kicked, hard, like they could feel her fear. It's okay, she whispered, hands on her stomach. We're okay. Daddy's going to handle this. She'd called Damien Daddy without thinking. The word felt strange, but also right. Gunfire echoed from above. Shouting. Something that might have been an explosion. Natasha grabbed her hand. He's going to be fine. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Because my brother's too stubborn to die, and he's got too much to lose now. The fighting lasted 45 minutes. It felt like years. Finally, the bunker door opened. Damien stood there, covered in blood, favoring his left side, but alive. Selena was across the room before she realized she'd moved, hands on his face, checking him for injuries. I'm okay, he said. You're bleeding. It's not all mine. That's not reassuring. He caught her hands, held them against his chest. I'm okay. I promise. Behind them, Victoria cleared her throat. Status report. Damien's expression hardened back into the crime lord. We killed 12, 3 escaped. We lost 4 men, 2 more injured but stable. Casualties? None civilian. The estate's secure. And the Castellanos? This was their opening move. There'll be more. Then we end this. Tonight. Damien nodded. I'll make the calls. What are you planning? Selena asked. A war, Victoria said simply. The Castellanos attacked our home. That requires a response. A permanent one. You're going to kill them all. Every last one. Selena should have objected, should have argued for mercy, for strategy, for anything other than wholesale slaughter. But she thought about the 15 men who'd stormed the estate, the bullets that could have hit her, the danger to her unborn children, and she found she didn't have any objections after all. Do it, she said. Victoria smiled. Welcome to the family, dear. The war lasted 3 days. Selena watched from the bunker as Damien orchestrated attacks across the city. Castellano businesses burned. Their associates disappeared. Their allies suddenly found new loyalties. By the 3rd day, Lorenzo Castellano himself was dead, killed in a shootout outside his own mansion. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt like survival. When Damien finally came back, he looked like he'd aged 10 years. Exhausted, bloodied, but unbroken. Is it over? Selena asked. For now. The Reyes backed off when they saw what happened to the Castellanos. The Kozlovs are staying neutral. We're safe. For now. For now, he agreed. He sat beside her on the bunker cot, and she leaned against him without thinking. His arm came around her shoulders, and they sat like that in silence. I'm sorry, he said finally. For what? For this life. For dragging you into it. for making you into someone who can watch people die and not flinch. I haven't changed that much. Yes, you have. I can see it. His hand found hers. Sometimes I look at you and I don't know if I'm watching you grow stronger or watching you break. Maybe both. That's what I'm afraid of. She turned to face him. I'm not broken, Damien. I'm just not the same person I was 6 months ago, and maybe that's not a bad thing. How can you say that? You've had to kill, hide, live in fear. I've also learned I'm stronger than I thought, braver, more capable. She squeezed his hand. You didn't break me. You showed me what I could become when I stopped being afraid. And what's that? You're equal. The words hung between them. Then Damien kissed her, and it wasn't gentle or careful. It was desperate and raw and full of everything they'd been holding back. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Selena saw the truth in his eyes. This wasn't fake anymore. Wasn't strategy. Wasn't a business arrangement. Somewhere between the fear and the fighting, between the threats and the survival, they'd become something real. This is a bad idea, she whispered. Probably the worst I've ever had. We should stop. We should. Neither of them moved. Selena, don't. Don't say anything that'll make this more complicated than it already is. Too late, he said. I'm in love with you. The words should have terrified her. Instead, they felt like coming home. You're an idiot, she said. I know. I don't even like you most of the time. I know that too. And this is never going to work. We're from completely different worlds. Are we? Because from where I'm sitting, we're in the same world now, fighting the same fight, protecting the same things. He was right. Somewhere along the way, his world had become her world. His fight had become her fight. And she'd stopped wanting to leave. I'm terrified, she admitted, of me, of this, of feeling this way about you when everything is still so dangerous and uncertain. Then we make it certain. We make it safe. He cupped her face in his hands. I know I don't deserve you. I know I've done terrible things. But I swear to you, Selena, I will spend the rest of my life trying to be the man you deserve. The man our children deserve. Tears burned behind her eyes. You can't promise that. Watch me. And she believed him. Despite everything. Despite the blood and the violence and the darkness that would always be part of his world. She believed him. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Okay what? Okay, I love you too, you impossible man. He kissed her again, and this time when they broke apart, they were both smiling. Above them, the world was still dangerous, still unpredictable, still ready to destroy them if they showed weakness. But down here, in the bunker beneath a fortress built on violence and fear, Selena Hayes Wolf finally felt safe. Not because of the concrete walls or the armed guards or the empire at their backs, but because she'd found someone worth fighting for, worth surviving for, worth becoming stronger for, and that was something no enemy could ever take away. The admission changed everything and nothing at the same time. They stayed in the bunker for another hour, just holding each other, not talking about what came next because for once the future could wait. When they finally emerged, the estate was being cleaned and repaired, guards stationed at every entrance, the smell of gunpowder still hanging in the air. Victoria was in her office, on the phone, orchestrating damage control. She looked up when they walked in together, saw their clasped hands, and raised an eyebrow. So you finally stopped pretending, she said, after hanging up. We were never very good at it, Damien replied. No, you weren't. Victoria poured herself a drink. Good. Pretending is exhausting, and we have real problems to deal with. The Castellanos are finished, Damien said. The Castellanos, yes. But the Reyes are watching. The Kozlovs are making inquiries. And there are always others waiting for a moment of weakness. She looked at Selena. How far along are you now? 7 months? 2 months until the babies arrive. 2 months of vulnerability. Every enemy we have knows that. So what do we do? Selena asked. Victoria smiled. We make them believe the Empire is stronger than ever. We show no weakness, no fear. And we make it very clear that anyone who moves against us dies screaming. Mother, Natasha said from the doorway, you really need to work on your motivational speeches. I'm not trying to motivate. I'm stating facts. Victoria stood. The babies will be born here, in this house, with the best medical team money can buy. We'll have security on every floor. No one gets in without clearance. Understood? Understood, Damien said. The next 2 months were the strangest of Selena's life. She grew huge with pregnancy, waddling through the mansion like a house had attached itself to her midsection. But she also grew stronger in ways that had nothing to do with her body. She sat in on business meetings, offered opinions that Damien actually listened to, learned the intricacies of running an empire that operated in shadows. Natasha became her constant companion, helping her prepare the nursery, teaching her baby basics, making jokes about how Damien was going to be a disaster at diaper changes. He can orchestrate a multi-state operation but can't figure out how to fold a onesie, Natasha laughed one afternoon while they assembled cribs. This is going to be hilarious. You're enjoying this too much. After years of being treated like decoration? Hell yes, I'm enjoying watching my perfect brother panic about pacifiers. Selena smiled, but the smile faded when she felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. She gasped, clutching the edge of the crib. What's wrong? Natasha was at her side instantly. Nothing, just they're kicking hard. Should I get Damien? No, I'm fine. It's just been a long day. But as the evening wore on, the pains got worse. Sharper, more frequent. By midnight, Selena knew something was wrong. She found Damien in his office, told him calmly that she needed the doctor, and then her water broke all over his expensive rug. The next 12 hours were a blur of pain and panic, and medical professionals shouting instructions. The babies were coming early. Not dangerously early, the doctor said, but early enough to be risky. They'd set up a delivery room in the estate's medical wing, and Selena found herself surrounded by machines and monitors and people who kept telling her to breathe. I am breathing, she snapped during a particularly brutal contraction. Breathe better, the doctor said. Damien held her hand through all of it, looking more terrified than she'd ever seen him. The man who'd faced down armed attackers without flinching was white as a sheet, watching her scream through labor. You're doing great, he said, voice shaking. I hate you so much right now. I know. This is all your fault. I know that too. If I survive this, I'm killing you myself. Fair enough. She squeezed his hand so hard she felt bones shift, and he didn't make a sound. Just held on and whispered encouragement and looked at her like she was the strongest person alive. The first baby arrived at dawn. A girl, tiny and perfect and screaming loud enough to wake the dead. She's healthy, the doctor said, handing the baby to a nurse. Good weight, good color. Selena didn't have time to process it before the next contraction hit. The second baby, another girl, came 20 minutes later, quieter than her sister but just as perfect. The third baby, a boy, took his time. Another 40 minutes of agony before he finally decided to make his entrance, and when he did, he came out silent. Too silent. Why isn't he crying? Selena demanded. Why isn't he crying? The medical team swarmed the baby, working quickly, efficiently. Selena tried to sit up, but Damien held her shoulders. Let them work, he said, but she heard the fear in his voice. Then finally, a thin wail broke through the tension. He's okay, the doctor said. Just needed a little encouragement. All three are healthy. Selena collapsed back against the pillows, exhausted and relieved and overwhelmed. Damien pressed his forehead to hers, and she felt wetness on his cheeks. You did it, he whispered. You're amazing. We did it, she corrected. All 5 of us. They brought the babies over one by one. 2 girls and a boy, each one impossibly small and fragile and real. Selena held them and felt something shift inside her chest. Love so fierce it was almost painful. Protective instinct that made every threat they'd ever faced feel personal. These were her children, her family, and she would burn the world down before she let anyone hurt them. Damien sat beside her on the bed, carefully holding one of the girls, looking at her like he couldn't quite believe she existed. What do we name them? He asked. They'd discussed names before, but none of them had felt right. Now, looking at the 3 tiny faces, Selena knew exactly what to call them. Maya, she said, touching the first girl's head. Elena, she said for the second. And James, for the boy. Maya, Elena, and James Wolfe, Damien said, testing it out. I like it. Good. Because I'm not pushing out any more babies if you decide to change your mind later. He laughed, actually laughed, and kissed her forehead. Deal. Victoria arrived an hour later, took one look at the babies, and something in her icy expression cracked. They're perfect, she said quietly. They are, Selena agreed. This changes everything, you know. These children are the future of this family. They'll need to be protected, trained, prepared for the world they're inheriting. No, Damien said firmly. Victoria looked at him sharply. No? They're not inheriting this world. I'm done. The words hung in the air like a bomb. You can't be serious, Victoria said. I'm completely serious. I've spent my entire life building an empire on violence and fear. I'm not passing that to my children. They deserve better. Better? This empire gave you power, resources, everything you have, everything except peace. I want them to grow up without looking over their shoulders, without wondering if every person they meet is a threat, without becoming what I became. Selena's heart swelled. She reached for his hand, squeezed it. Victoria's face hardened. You're making a mistake. Maybe. But it's mine to make. And what about everyone who depends on you? The families you've allied with, the businesses you run. I'll transition out. Slowly, carefully. Legitimate enterprises stay. Everything else gets dismantled or handed off to people I trust. That will take years. Then I'll take years. But I'm done being the king of shadows. I want to be a father, a husband, a person. Victoria stared at him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. You've changed, she said. She changed you. Yeah, she did. Victoria looked at Selena. I underestimated you. I thought you'd either break or run. Instead, you became exactly what this family needed. What's that? Selena asked. A conscience. She left, and Selena and Damien sat together with their 3 sleeping babies, making plans for a future neither of them had imagined 6 months ago. The transition wasn't easy. It took 3 years of careful planning and strategic moves. Damien sold off the illegal operations piece by piece, reinvested in legitimate businesses, made alliances with people who wanted to go straight as much as he did. Some people fought him, called him weak, threatened to fill the power vacuum he was leaving behind. Those people learned quickly that Damien Wolf walking away from crime didn't mean he'd forgotten how to be dangerous. The last man who tried to force him back into the life ended up in federal prison, courtesy of an anonymous tip that included enough evidence to put him away for life. After that, people got the message. Damien Wolf was done, and anyone smart would leave him that way. Selena spent those 3 years learning to be a mother, which turned out to be harder than surviving assassination attempts. Maya was stubborn and fierce. Elena was quiet and observant, and James was fearless in ways that gave Selena heart attacks on a daily basis. But they were also joy in its purest form. Every smile, every laugh, every milestone reminded her why they'd fought so hard to survive. Victoria, surprisingly, became a doting grandmother. She taught the children chess and strategy and how to spot a liar at 20 paces. But she also read them bedtime stories and baked cookies and showed a warmth Selena hadn't known she was capable of. Natasha threw herself into the legitimate side of the business, proving to everyone that she was more than capable of running operations. She became Damien's right hand in ways that had nothing to do with crime and everything to do with building something real. And slowly, carefully, the Wolf family transformed from a criminal empire into something else, something better. 4 years after the triplets were born, Damien came to Selena with a proposition. Let's leave, he said. Leave where? Here. The city. All of it. Let's take the kids and start over somewhere new. Selena looked at him carefully. Are you serious? Completely. The businesses are stable. Natasha can run things from here. We've done what we needed to do. Now I want to actually live. Where would we go? Anywhere you want. Colorado, Montana. Hell, we could go to Europe if you wanted. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere the kids can run around without armed guards. Somewhere we can just be a family. It sounded too good to be true. But Selena had learned that sometimes good things actually happened if you fought hard enough for them. Okay, she said, let's do it. They chose Montana, a ranch in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by mountains and sky and nothing but space. They enrolled the kids in a local school where no one knew or cared who Damien Wolf used to be. Selena started a foundation for women in situations like hers had been, trapped, scared, pregnant, with nowhere to go. She used Damien's money to build shelters, fund education programs, give women the tools to escape dangerous situations, and rebuild their lives. It became her purpose. the thing that turned all her pain into something meaningful. Damien learned to be a regular dad. He coached James's Little League team, taught the girls to ride horses, spent evenings helping with homework instead of planning operations. He wasn't perfect at it. Sometimes the old instincts kicked in, the need for control, the constant threat assessment, the darkness that never fully left. But he was trying, and that counted for something. 5 years after they left the city, on a quiet evening while the kids played outside, Selena and Damien sat on the porch and watched the sunset. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked. "The power, the control, sometimes." He took her hand. "But then I look at this, at them, at you, at the life we've built, and I remember why I walked away." "No regrets?" "Only one, that I didn't meet you sooner, that you had to go through hell to get here." "I don't regret it," Selena said. "Any of it, even the scary parts, because they made me who I am now." "And who's that?" "Someone strong enough to survive you." She smiled. "Someone brave enough to love you anyway." He kissed her, soft and sweet, and Maya yelled from the yard that they were being gross. They pulled apart, laughing, and Selena felt something she never thought she'd feel again. Peace. Real, genuine peace. But peace, she'd learned, was something you had to fight for every single day. The threat came on a Tuesday. A car pulled up to their ranch. A man stepped out. Someone Selena didn't recognize, but Damien clearly did. His whole body went tense. "Get the kids inside," he said quietly. "Who is that?" "Victor Kozlov. He was supposed to be in prison." Selena's blood went cold. She called the kids, herded them into the house, told them to go to their rooms. They complained but obeyed, sensing the seriousness in her voice. Through the window, she watched Damien walk out to meet Victor. They talked for several minutes, their voices too low to hear. Then Victor pulled out a gun. Selena didn't think. She grabbed the pistol Damien kept in the kitchen drawer, the one she'd hoped they'd never need out here, and walked outside. "Put it down," she called out. Victor turned, surprised, then smiled. "Ah, the famous Selena Wolf. I've heard so much about you. And you're the idiot who thinks showing up here with a gun is a good idea." "I'm simply delivering a message. Your husband thinks he can walk away from the life. But there are debts that don't forgive. People who don't forget." "We don't owe you anything," Damien said. "No. But you owe the Reyes family. They lost a lot of money when you dismantled your operations. They want compensation, $10 million. Or they start taking pieces of your new life until there's nothing left." "We're done negotiating with people like you," Selena said. "Then you're done. Period." Victor raised his gun. Selena fired first. She'd been practicing. 4 years of target shooting on their property, learning to be proficient because Damien had insisted. She'd never thought she'd actually use it. The bullet hit Victor in the shoulder. He went down cursing, gun clattering to the ground. Damien was on him in seconds, disarming him, pinning him down. "Call Marcus," he told Selena. She did. Marcus arrived 3 hours later with a team. They took Victor away, and Selena never asked what happened to him. Some things were better left unknown. That night, after the kids were asleep and the adrenaline had faded, Selena sat on the bathroom floor and cried. Not from fear, not from regret, just from the weight of knowing that no matter how far they ran, the past would always find them. Damien found her there, sat beside her, pulled her close. "We can't keep living like this," she said. "I know. Every time I think we're safe, something happens. Someone shows up. How long before it's not Victor with a gun? How long before it's someone who actually gets through? Who hurts the kids? It won't happen. I won't let it. You can't promise that." He was silent for a long moment. Then, "What if we made it impossible for anyone to come after us?" "How?" "By ending it, completely, once and for all." The plan was simple and brutal. Damien reached out to every family, every organization that had ever had a claim on him. He offered them one final meeting, a summit, a chance to settle all debts and close all accounts. "And if they refuse," Selena asked, "then we make them wish they'd accepted." The summit took place in neutral territory, a warehouse in Detroit that neither side owned. Damien brought Marcus and Natasha. Selena insisted on coming too. "Absolutely not," Damien said. "Yes. This ends because of me as much as you. I deserve to see it through." He wanted to argue, but he also knew she was right. The Reyes family came, the Kozlovs sent representatives. Even some of Vincent's old associates showed up, curious about what Damien Wolfe wanted after 5 years of silence. Damien stood at the head of the table and laid it out simply. I'm offering each of you 2 choices. Option 1. I pay you $10 million right now in exchange for a signed agreement that my family is untouchable, forever. You forget we exist, we forget you exist. Anyone who breaks that agreement deals with everyone at this table who didn't. And option 2? The Reyes patriarch asked. I release every piece of evidence I've collected over the years, financial records, communications, witness statements, everything you've all spent decades burying. It goes to the FBI, the DEA, every alphabet agency that wants to put you away. And then I testify, publicly, with immunity. The room erupted, shouting, threats. Someone pulled a gun before Marcus stepped forward and made it very clear that would be a fatal mistake. You're bluffing, one of the Kozlov representatives said. Damien pulled out a laptop, showed them a file directory with hundreds of documents. Am I? The room went quiet. Why would you burn it all down? The Reyes patriarch asked. You'd implicate yourself. I have immunity already, been working with the feds for 2 years. They want you more than they want me, so I walk. And you rot, unless you take option 1. It was the biggest bluff of Damien's life. He had evidence, yes, but immunity? That was a lie. If he released the files, he'd go down too, but they didn't know that. And Damien's reputation for ruthlessness sold the deception. One by one, they agreed. 10 million each. Signed contracts with clauses that made it clear breaking the agreement meant war with everyone else at the table. By the end of the night, Damien had bought their safety for $50 million. Money he had. Money he'd gladly spend to never look over his shoulder again. When it was done, when the contracts were signed and the money transferred, Selena and Damien walked out of that warehouse and got into the car where their children waited with trusted guards. Is it over? Maya asked. She was 9 now, smart enough to know something had been wrong. It's over, Damien said. Promise? Promise. He kept that promise. For the next 10 years, no one came. No threats. No attacks. No men with guns showing up at their ranch. The Wolfe family lived quietly, peacefully, in a way that once seemed impossible. The triplets grew into teenagers with their own lives and dreams. Maya wanted to be a lawyer. Elena was obsessed with marine biology. James played football and talked about joining the Peace Corps. None of them wanted anything to do with their father's old life. And that was exactly what Damien had hoped for. Selena's foundation expanded. She helped thousands of women escape dangerous situations, gave them the tools to rebuild. She spoke at conferences, wrote a book about survival and strength, became a voice for people who'd lost their own. And Damien became the man he'd always wanted to be. Not the feared crime lord, not the ruthless king, just a husband, a father, a person who'd found redemption in the last place he expected. On their 15th wedding anniversary, Selena and Damien stood on the same porch where they'd spent countless evenings watching another sunset. Did you ever think we'd make it this far? She asked. Honestly, no. I thought you'd leave, or I'd get killed, or the world would catch up with us. But it didn't. No, it didn't. He pulled her close. You saved me, you know. That night in the bar, you looked at me like I was human, and then you spent years proving I could be. I never would have walked away without you. We saved each other, Selena corrected. I was drowning before I met you, working myself to death. No future, no hope. You gave me purpose, even if it came wrapped in chaos and danger. Some gift, the best one. She kissed him. Because it gave me this, us, them, a life worth living. They stood together as the sun disappeared behind the mountains, and Selena thought about the terrified waitress who'd walked into a clinic 7 years ago, expecting to erase one mistake. That woman had been certain her life was over, that she had nothing left to offer the world. She'd been wrong. Sometimes the worst moments become the doorways to the best ones. Sometimes the people who scare you the most end up being exactly who you need. Sometimes you have to burn your whole life down to build something worth keeping. Selena had learned that fear and strength weren't opposites. They were partners. That loving someone dangerous didn't make you weak. It made you brave enough to see past their armor. That the hardest choice wasn't between good and evil, but between survival and surrender. And she'd chosen to survive. Not just exist, but actually live. To take all the pain and fear and turn it into purpose. To raise children who knew both safety and strength. To love a man who'd been raised in darkness and chose light anyway. The road had been brutal, bloody, terrifying. But standing here now with Damien's arms around her and their children's laughter drifting from inside the house, Selena wouldn't change a single moment. Because this was what happened when you refused to break. When you fought for something bigger than yourself. When you decided that your story didn't end with fear, it began with it. And what a story it had been. The kind worth telling, worth surviving, worth living. The kind that proved even in the darkest places love could grow. Families could heal. People could change. And sometimes, just sometimes, the girl with nothing and the king with everything could find exactly what they needed in each other. Not perfection, not paradise, not some fairy tale ending where all the damage magically disappeared, but something real, something hard-won, something that mattered. A family, a future, a life built from the wreckage of who they'd been into something neither of them could have imagined. And that, Selena thought as the stars began to appear overhead, was more than enough. It was everything.